Dragons in mythology. How different cultures describe them. Hey everyone, ever noticed how dragons pop up in stories from just about every corner of the globe? From the bustling streets of Beijing during the Lunar New Year to the ancient hills of Europe echoing tales of fire-breathing beasts, dragons are everywhere. So today, let's dive into how different cultures describe these legendary creatures and what they symbolize. Buckle up, it's gonna be a wild ride through history and folklore. Chinese mythology. First stop, China. Now, Chinese dragons, or long, as they're called, are pretty different from the dragons you might be thinking of. Picture this. A long, serpentine body covered in scales like a fish, 4 legs each with sharp claws, and horns like a stag. Oh, and here's the kicker. They usually don't have wings but can fly anyway. Talk about defying gravity. In Chinese culture, dragons are considered super lucky. They're symbols of power, strength, and good luck for people who are worthy of it. They control water, rain, hurricanes, and floods. So basically, if you're planning a picnic, you might want to stay on their good side. Dragons are all over Chinese myths. Ever heard of the Dragon Kings? These guys are the guardians of the 4 seas, each ruling over one of the cardinal directions. And then there's the legend of Yu the Great, who got help from dragons to control the devastating floods. Pretty epic, right? Culturally, dragons are a big deal in China. Ancient emperors used the dragon as a symbol of imperial authority because, well, who wouldn't want a dragon as their mascot? Even today, events like the Dragon Boat Festival celebrate these majestic creatures. Plus, in feng shui, dragons are considered auspicious and are believed to bring harmony and prosperity. So if you see a dragon statue in someone's home, now you know why. European mythology. Alright, hopping over to Europe. European dragons are the ones most of us are familiar with, big, scaly, lizard-like creatures with massive bat-like wings, sharp claws, and the ability to breathe fire. Yep, the whole 9 yards. But unlike their Chinese cousins, European dragons are often the bad guys in the story. In medieval Europe, dragons were seen as symbols of chaos and evil. In Christian contexts, they were sometimes even linked to Satan himself. They often represented greed and destruction, hoarding treasures and burning villages. There are tons of famous dragon tales in Europe. Take Saint George and the Dragon, a classic where the knight slays the dragon to save a princess. It's the ultimate good versus evil showdown. Then there's the dragon in Beowulf, which is Beowulf's final and greatest challenge. And let's not forget about dragons in Arthurian legends, like the ones associated with Uther Pendragon and Merlin's prophecies. Culturally, dragons were so influential that they ended up on coats of arms, flags, shout-out to whales, and in heraldry. They became symbols of power and bravery, even if they were the villains in the stories. European dragons have left a massive footprint on literature, art, and folklore that still echoes today. Japanese mythology. Next, let's jet over to Japan. Japanese dragons, or Ryu, are pretty similar to Chinese dragons but with their own unique twists. For instance, they usually have 3 toes, compared to the Chinese dragon's 4 or 5. These dragons are also associated with water, think seas, rivers, and rainfall. In Japanese culture, dragons symbolize imperial power and are considered harbingers of good fortune. They're the guardians of the natural world and are deeply respected. One famous dragon is Ryujin, the dragon god of the sea who possesses a magical jewel that controls the tides. One intriguing tale is that of Kiyohime, a woman who transforms into a dragon out of unrequited love and seeks vengeance. Dragons are deeply embedded in Japanese art, from traditional paintings to tattoos. You'll often see them in festivals and even in Shinto practices, reflecting their significant role in cultural beliefs and rituals. Middle Eastern mythology. Heading over to the Middle East, dragons take on some fascinating forms. In Mesopotamian mythology, there's Tiamat, a primordial goddess who is sometimes depicted as a dragon or a massive sea serpent. She represents chaos and the oceanic abyss. The epic battle between Marduk and Tiamat is legendary, leading to the creation of the world from her divided body. In Persian mythology, we have Azzy-Dahaka, a terrifying dragon with 3 heads, 6 eyes, and multiple sets of fangs. He embodies sin, corruption, and all things nasty. Heroes battling such creatures often symbolize the fight against evil forces. Generally, dragons in Middle Eastern myths are seen as adversaries to gods and heroes, representing chaos that needs to be overcome. It's all about that cosmic struggle between order and disorder. a theme that's pretty universal when you think about it. Norse mythology. Now, let's brave the cold and explore Norse mythology. In these legends, dragons are often serpentine and closely linked to the earth and the underworld. One of the most notorious is Nihagr, a dragon that's busy gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Then there's Fafnir, a dwarf who turns into a dragon because of his overwhelming greed for gold. And who could forget Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent? This guy is so big he encircles the entire world and is prophesied to have a showdown with Thor during Ragnarok, the end of the world. In Norse culture, dragons often symbolize greed, destruction, and the cyclical nature of life and death. They're depicted in Viking art, on runestones, and throughout sagas, highlighting their importance in storytelling and belief systems. Hindu mythology. Sliding over to India, we encounter the Nagas in Hindu mythology. These are semi-divine serpent beings, often depicted as half-human, half-snake. They live in luxurious underground palaces filled with priceless gems and treasures. Nagas are guardians of earthly treasures and protectors of water sources like rivers, lakes, and wells. They represent fertility, immortality, and the eternal cycle of life. Notable Nagas include Shesha, the king of Nagas who supports Lord Vishnu and, by extension, the entire universe. There's also Vasuki, who was used as a churning rope during the cosmic event of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk. Culturally, Nagas are significant in temple architecture, especially in South India and Southeast Asia. They influence rituals, festivals, and tons of artistic representations. Native American mythology. Let's hop across the pond to North America. In Native American myths, there are creatures that resemble dragons, though they might not be called that explicitly. One famous example is the Piasa bird, depicted in cliff paintings along the Mississippi River. It's a dragon-like beast with scales, horns, and a fearsome face. According to legend, it preyed upon local tribes until it was defeated by a brave chief. These creatures often symbolize powerful spirits or protectors and embody natural forces or omens. They're integral to tribal stories and oral traditions, influencing regional art and ceremonial practices even today. Mesoamerican mythology. Heading south to Mesoamerica, we meet Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. This deity was super important to civilizations like the Aztecs and Mayans. Imagine a massive serpent covered in vibrant feathers. Quetzalcoatl was the god of wind, air, and learning. He was associated with creation, fertility, and even the morning star, Venus. Legends tell of Quetzalcoatl creating humanity by shedding his own blood. There's also a myth about his departure and promised return, which had consequences when the Spanish arrived. Temples and pyramids, like the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Teotihuacan, were built in his honor. His influence is seen in calendar systems, religious practices, and art. African mythology. Last but not least, let's explore African mythology. In ancient Egypt, there's Apep, or Apophis, the serpent god who embodies chaos and opposes Ra, the sun god, during his nightly journey through the underworld. Other African cultures have tales of great serpents or dragon-like creatures, often representing chaos, creation, or the balance between good and evil. Some tribes speak of rainbow serpents linked to fertility and life. These creatures often serve as protectors of sacred knowledge or treasures. They're depicted in art, storytelling, and religious rituals, highlighting their significance in understanding the cosmos and the afterlife. Comparative analysis. So, what's the deal with dragons appearing in so many different cultures? Across the board, dragons are seen as powerful and majestic. They're often linked to natural elements like water, fire, air, and earth. They embody human fears, like chaos and destruction, as well as aspirations, such as power and immortality. In Eastern cultures like China and Japan, dragons are generally benevolent, bringing good luck and prosperity. In contrast, Western cultures often portray dragons as malevolent, hoarding treasure and wreaking havoc. Physically, they range from wingless, serpentine beings to massive, winged, fire-breathing beasts. Dragons reflect societal values. In cultures where dragons are revered, qualities like wisdom, strength, and harmony with nature are emphasized. Where dragons are feared, they often represent challenges to be overcome, symbolizing bravery and heroism. Some say it's due to shared human psychology. We tend to create myths that personify the forces of nature. Others suggest that ancient people might have found dinosaur fossils and crafted stories around them. Today, dragons are all over pop culture. Think Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, the list goes on. They're used in branding, like in logos and mascots, and appear in movies, video games, and art. Phew, that was quite the journey. From the benevolent, cloud-soaring dragons of China to the treasure-hoarding fire-breathers of Europe, we've seen how these mythical creatures are as diverse as the cultures that birthed them. It's fascinating how dragons, whether revered or feared, continue to captivate us. Maybe it's because they embody the unknown, the mystery of the deep sea, the chaos of nature, or the potential within ourselves. At the end of the day, myths like these help us understand not just the world around us, but also each other. They show us that even across vast distances and different eras, there are stories and symbols that connect us all. So next time you come across a dragon in a book, movie, or even a festival, take a moment to appreciate the rich tapestry of history and culture it's woven from. And who knows, maybe sharing these tales is our own modern way of keeping the magic alive. Thanks for joining me on this epic adventure. Until next time, keep dreaming and stay curious.